think we look at protest, even me saying like, oh, should I call it a riot? Like we have this thing in our head, which is also very like Scorpio 8th house of, oh, we don't want to rock the boat. Well, Black Moon Lilith is here to say, like, it's time to rock the boat. If you're not, we live in this one life that we know of, and we absolutely deserve to have our material needs met. And if money is the way to get there, then that's how we get there. And everything going on with the banking crisis, which is going to continue to be exacerbated with Pluto and other things that we've got going on in the next couple months, we've really just seen the tip of the iceberg there. This is just going to continue to be a story. And so I hope that the nodes, before they move in July into Aries and Libra, while they're still in Scorpio and Taurus, at least in the United States, we can learn that we actually can and must stand up for and express our needs in a way that can make change happen. And hopefully we can do that without violence. And we have to be willing to take risks.
And I love that. Lilith is really about, I think of it as a righteous rage.
All right. Hi, and welcome back to the Goddess Report for the month of April 2023. I'm here with Kris Journey of Journey Woman Astrology. Thanks for joining, Kris.
Hi, Taylor. Nice to be here.
Yes, it's so much fun talking about this with you every month. So I'm going to run through quickly, week by week, what we can expect in the month of April for the planets and the goddesses and asteroids, dwarf planets, all the things in between that we like to chat about. So the first week of April 5th and 6th, we start out with the sun, our energy conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. So this is going to highlight healing and health, perhaps give us some energy around healing as well. April 6th, we have a full moon at 16 degrees of Libra opposite Chiron. And that's really just about feeling this healing, especially because that sun Chiron is active both the 5th and 6th of April. Then the second week of April, we have Uranus, the kind of shake-up guy, conjoining Juno, who's all about loyalty and fidelity and partnership, making a difficult square aspect to Black Moon Lilith, who's like, this is just all about liberating yourself, and it can feel surprising, but I think it's really an empowering aspect that we'll see. That's active April 9th through 12th. Then April 11th through the 13th, we'll feel the sun and Jupiter squaring to Pallas Athena. So this is all about the opportunity for really big strategy or big learnings or large opportunities for teaching and changing our strategy about who we are as individuals, how we individuate, and how we show up as ourselves. April 11th, Venus moves into the sign of Gemini. So we get really social. We're going to want to get out with our friends and have a good time, socialize. And it's really like, what's the word for when someone, it's like sapiosexual, like when you're totally turned on by someone's mind. I feel like that's very Venus in Gemini.
Dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah. Dreamy. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm all about that. Every relationship.
Totally. Me too. I mean, I've got Venus in Aquarius in an air sign. Gemini's an air sign. So completely, you got to have good conversation.
Gemini, good conversations. Absolutely.
Right. And then that third week of April 20th, the sun moves into Taurus. So we slow down, we get a little bit more grounded, a little bit more earthy. We might want to snack. We might want to nap. We might want to lounge. We might want to enjoy the finer things in life. And April 21st, that next day, we get Mercury retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. Now, this day, we also get a lunar eclipse on April 20th. I'm sorry, a new moon eclipse, right? So that's going to be a pretty big power surge in the area of having a new beginning about ourselves, about our individuality, about what we want to take action on. That's going to be in Aries at 2950 Aries. So you want to look to see if you have anything at like 0, 1, 2, 3 degrees of Taurus or 27, 28, 29 degrees of Aries. You're really going to be feeling this eclipse that's happening April 20th. And that same day, we're going to start feeling the Jupiter Eris conjunction, which is a big shakeup. Eris kind of took the golden apple and threw it into the wedding that started the Trojan War. And so it's really big learning, teaching, potentially healing that comes from rocking the boat. And then April 23rd through 26th, this is going to be the last part of April, the last couple of days of April. We have the sun meeting up with Vesta, who tends to our sacred hearth, and also the North Node. And that's going to be making a friendly aspect to Saturn. So this is all about highlighting how our home is supportive for us. And perhaps we'll want to make some changes in our house. If you're looking for a house, if this is hitting your chart, exactly, you may be moving, you may have some changes in your house, you may need to reinforce your home, reinforce your boundaries around your home so that it really feels sacred and supportive for you. And then the last thing we'll talk about in this overview, in this monthly recap, is that April 26th through the 29th, Mars is going to be with the moon, and that is going to square Chiron. So that's Mars in Cancer, I believe. And that's on the 26th of April, making a difficult aspect to Chiron. So this is all about the time for change and wanting to take action, because whatever is ailing us is just, it's just not feeling good. It's kind of feeling inflamed, getting some heat. And so we're going to want to make some changes and take some action. And it may also be around the topics of protection and caring for other people and ourselves. So that is what we can expect for the month of April. A lot of healing, a lot of liberation, some shakeups, some changes, some power surges. It's a really big month. What do you think, Kris?
You know, I think that there's potentially big changes for this month, potentially surprising changes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So should we dive right in to get more specific?
Yeah.
Like what kind of keywords would we use for the month?
Well, you know, we can sort of talk about these themes as we go transit by transit, but I would say the lunations this month look intense. The April 6th is conjunct Chiron, April 20th square Pluto. This is potentially some with Chiron, some wounding, maybe, and healing, hopefully. But the Sun conjunct Chiron can be a tough aspect, and with the eclipse squaring Pluto, it's like I hang on to the roller coaster sort of aspect for me. So, overall, I think we're looking at themes of, finding courage, and when I look at these lunations, when I look at what's happening this month, the message that jumps out for me is it's like that. Sometimes I think everybody can think back to times when they've made really hard choices that felt like a risk, but that led to something tremendously rewarding or gratifying. So it's sort of like this sense of doing the hard thing is what lands you in a profoundly more centered place, sometimes more at home. And I think, we've got Saturn sextiling the nodes this month, and with that Sun-Vesta-North Node wrapping up the month, sextiling Saturn, it's almost like we may need to find the courage to make some changes this month that may hurt for a bit. But if we can stay true to ourselves, make choices that feel true to ourselves, we'll ride out this wave and get to a more stable foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't wait to get into more of the details with you, but thank you for those reflections. I think it's going to resonate. And so stay tuned for the rest, and we'll tell you all the details day by day, what you can expect. Well, not every single day, but the days that things are happening, what you can expect. So especially if you have a birthday in April, if you've got a lot of placements in the cardinal signs, or even the fixed signs, I feel like this is going to be a big month for you. So you especially should stay tuned because you're going to be feeling this astrology and we want to tell you what to expect.
The other point that I think is worth noting is that of the transits that we talk about, these sort of standout transits of the month, like Sun conjunct Chiron or Juno conjunct Uranus, if you take a look and you see that they're not actually doing much with your natal chart, look at the solar arc chart, look at the transits to the solar arc, look at the transits to the secondary progress chart if you know how to do that, because sometimes that's where the key message really jumps out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like if you're tuned in, you probably do have something going on if it's not in your natal chart in one of those charts that Kris mentioned. So either your solar arc or your secondary progressions, could even be your solar return chart. I mean, look at your solar return chart. There's so many things that you can look at to see. I mean, I was just looking at my chart and I was wondering why I was having so many people with Saturn going over their sun coming into my life. And I realized that Saturn was just on my progressed sun. And I was like, of course, I'm having all these Sun Saturn people coming in because their natal sun is where my progressed sun is at. And so we're having this like similar echoing experience. And it does happen with so many other things. It can be the moon, it can be some of these asteroids. So it's definitely a good thing to look at to get more understanding.
And where these asteroid conjunctions or aspects can really be standout moments in a month or a year. Or sometimes if we look at them in the biwheel, the transits to the secondary progressed chart or the transits to the solar arc chart, that's where the messages can really jump out. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's start out April 1st. We've got Venus sextile Pallas, Jupiter square Pallas, and Mars trine Saturn. So can you help break that down for us?
well, the key transit there, I think, is the Jupiter square Pallas. And this came up, was it last month? Last month or February, we Jupiter's been squaring Pallas for a little bit, coming in and out of orb. And so April 1 to April 17, Pallas will actually be squaring Jupiter for 2.5 weeks in April. And it's a nice start to the month because we've got some supportive aspects with Venus, Mars trine Saturn. There's a sense here that things will go smoothly. Jupiter square Pallas can be, I think the emphasis here is about detachment, about using our brain, as my mother used to say. Use your brain. It's about maybe being able to take a step back on our lives and feeling a sense of maybe even freedom with an emotional detachment. I think it's a nice start to the month.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And the Mars trine Saturn, Mars is how we take action, and Saturn is long term. And so trine is a flowing, harmonious, supportive aspect. And so when we put that all together, what we get is a feeling of endurance, perseverance, tenacity, putting in the work, putting in the effort, and it actually paying off and sustaining us. So you could think of like if we had a Tesla that somehow had solar panels on it. So like the longer you drove, like the more power it would go and it would never kind of stop, sort of like that really long enduring road trip that would get you through. So by taking the risk and starting, I think you can spark something as long as you're strategic. Like you put those solar panels on the car, you know what I mean? You gotta think a little bit, use your brain, like you said, and you end up getting something that's really long lasting. But I think all of the Chiron aspects that we have as well are some of what triggers this. And with Venus in a supportive sextile aspect to pattern, Venus is about our relationships. It can be about female identifying people, or, you know, things like that. Like you don't want to say like feminine, like more receptive energies, right? So, how can we get strategic after partnering with other people, with friends, right? Is it someone who gives you advice and they've done it before and that sort of sparks something that lasts a long time?
Yeah. I feel like the 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 first really significant um action of the month is the sun conjoins Chiron April 5th and 6th. Saturn will sextile Mercury during this time uh as well. And then we have that full moon at 16 Libra on April 6th. And it's the moon is opposite Chiron. Because the sun is conjunct Chiron at that time. And so we have the Jupiter square Pallas already sort of in orbit at that point. And so this sun conjunct Chiron, I love, Taylor, that you highlight the sort of charisma aspect of it, these other sides of Chiron, because the healing, the charisma, the gaining strength from facing our wounds, or even just having life experiences. It can be tough. And but I have to say, I have seen Sun conjunct Chiron is this can be a stab in the heart as a transit. You know, it and I and this is a mundane transit. So unless your birthday is on April 5th or 6th, this won't affect.
Or even 7th. I mean, if it's like
Yeah,
the 2nd to the 10th, I feel like you're gonna feel this. It's close
yeah.
enough, right?
Well, Chiron is transiting the sun in that case, and that's, yeah. As we know, that's a major lifetime transit. That's a major shift in a lifetime to have Chiron going over the sun. So transiting someone's sun. But
Unless
but
they
Dave,
have it natally, because there are some people who have it natally, right? You're going to have Chiron opposite the sun, or you're going to have, so if you were born in like October 5th or 6th of 71, you're going to have Chiron opposite your sun. Chiron's going to be in Aries, and you're having your Chiron return. So you're not going to feel it in April. You might feel it in April, you very well could. And then the same for people who were born, 4 months or 3 months in between. So April, May, June, July. So July and December, right? So basically Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. If you have your sun conjunct opposite or square to Chiron, born in like late 70 or sometime in 71, I feel like you're going to feel this.
yeah, yeah. And what's so interesting though about Chiron, I mean, so I see that sun conjunct Chiron and I'm like, oh, I just want to protect everyone's heart, But I had a client who had Chiron go over her Venus, and she over the course of about a year, she lost 100 pounds and got into great physical shape. And so Chiron for her was coming along and healing her sense of beauty,
Oh,
her physical appearance. Yeah, isn't that incredible?
that's really
Um,
beautiful. Yeah. I love that. I'm trying not to like talk about my own chart, but I'm like thinking about my own chart. I'm like, oh goodness. And all the people I know, I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? But I do think like if you're willing to take a risk, like you said, if you're willing to go out on a limb, you could really pay off. And if you're not willing to take the risk, I think that's where the stab in the heart comes from. If you're not grounded enough, or really using that Aries energy to say, who cares? Like, speak up, say something. And like the worst thing someone could say is no, or that's kind of rude. Or, it's like, but at least you said the thing and you got the ball rolling. Right.
yeah. And what's so interesting with Chiron is that these shocks to the heart or whatever that can wake us up, that can shake us up. And even if it hurts in the moment, like someone makes a comment that just hits you right in a sore spot, but it wakes you up to, hey, maybe this person has a pattern of not being considerate of my emotions or my needs. And you realize maybe this is not a relationship I necessarily want to continue to invest in. So there's a way that there's a lesson in the wound if we can pay attention to that. That's why I say, focus on. It's it's never a loss if there's a lesson.
Ooh, I love that. It's never a loss if there's a lesson. That's really beautiful.
That I think that I'm getting, that may be a paraphrase, but I am getting that from Layla Delia, who I adore. She's a writer.
Beautiful. We'll have to put her at or something in the show notes. So
and also my mother. What can you learn from this?
Can we add her too? No, I'm just kidding.
Always, my mother always said something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
cool. So then we've got April 1st and 2nd, Black Moon Lilith square the nodes. So Black Moon Lilith is basically Eve from the Garden of Eden, and the nodes are about where we are heading to, either personally or collectively. So the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio. What this means when something is square the nodes is that we're being asked to sort of strengthen, fortify, and address that thing in order to move from where we've been and some of the bad habits that maybe are self-sabotaging, in order to move more towards our highest potential collectively. Now, if this is hitting you personally, there's going to be there's other ways that you could look at it. But I think it's really about Eve, or not Eve. I'm sorry. It's not Eve from the Garden of Eden. It's Lilith from the Garden of Eden, who was not subservient. So in what ways are you saying, I'm going to speak up, I'm no longer going to be subservient, in order to move towards that North Node in Taurus, which is about protecting the earth. It's about the simple pleasures in life. It's about protecting our food system. And the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio for me have really been about our collective wealth, right? South Node in Scorpio is about wealth. It's about hidden things. It's about research and intensity. It can be about also our mental health. It could be about astrology and esoteric subjects, about taxes and debt. Excuse me. And then how do we use that to work hard enough to make things last in Taurus, right? Taurus wants to work hard. It wants to make things real. It wants tangible material things because it's an earth sign, but we don't want to work too hard that we get burned out, because Taurus, like the bull, the ox that like pulls the cart that plows the earth, can sometimes just like work way too hard until it just like falls over. So yeah, how are we using the Lilith to speak up and not be subservient in order to move from pain, Scorpio, intense emotional pain, more towards solid stability with our material resources, North Node in Taurus, perhaps?
And I mean, that's the lesson that's been so significant. I think will continue to be with Taurus, with Uranus moving through Taurus, this question of meeting our basic needs. Even on a mundane level, can the earth handle the level of output that we're expecting of it? Can the planet feed us all? How can we feed humanity as our population continues to explode? I just saw an article of farmers and ranchers are just they're struggling so much, and then we've got this factory farming thing. I feel like the foundations of how we feed and support ourselves an issue now.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing this reminds me of, we're recording this in March, in mid-March, and just a few days ago, the president of France passed a law removing or raising the retirement age, and without a vote. And the people have taken to the streets. There are riots, there are fires. Perhaps I shouldn't call them riots. I'll need to think about that.
Protest.
There's protests, and I posted about this on my Facebook, so you can go check out that post. But I do think that it is, what I was saying about the North Node and Taurus being not working too hard. Well, if you raise the retirement age, you're making people work too hard, and they don't want to. And it is about our collective resources and wealth and debt. And the people are playing the role of Black Moon Lilith here, and saying that they will not be subservient and they will not take this, that they deserve their money, they deserve to have their material needs met. And how does that show up? It can feel very emotional when groups, Scorpio emotion, when groups of people collect to express their feelings, right? That's a protest. And in the United States, at least, I feel like we see this as bad. We look at it in a Scorpio way. I think we look at protest, even me saying like, oh, should I call it a riot? Like we have this thing in our head, which is also very like Scorpio 8th house of, oh, we don't want to rock the boat. Well, Black Moon Lilith is here to say, like, it's time to rock the boat. If you're not, we live in this one life that we know of, and we absolutely deserve to have our material needs met. And if money is the way to get there, then that's how we get there. And everything going on with the banking crisis, which is going to continue to be exacerbated with Pluto and other things that we've got going on in the next couple months, we've really just seen the tip of the iceberg there. This is just going to continue to be a story. And so I hope that the nodes, before they move in July into Aries and Libra, while they're still in Scorpio and Taurus, at least in the United States, we can learn that we actually can and must stand up for and express our needs in a way that can make change happen. And hopefully we can do that without violence. And we have to be willing to take risks.
And I love that. Lilith is really about, I think of it as a righteous rage. Yeah.
Exactly.
But should we look at the so we've talked about the full moon a bit. So we've also this month, because we have a fair amount to cover for the month. I made some notes in our Google Doc, Taylor. So the next up, so that full moon at 16 Libra on April 6th, conjunct or opposite Chiron. We've got Saturn sextiling Mercury that day, Mars trining and sextiling the nodes, and I think those are nice indications that something is going to go smoothly, continue to go smoothly here. We've around communication, around what we're taking action on. But I confess I was struck that I had to look at this in Trump's chart because he's announcing right now that that he thinks he's going to be arrested next week, and the next week as we're recording. So I do think that Trump's politics may influence or be reflected in the transits of April, just because with this Chiron, and then the April 20th eclipse squaring Pluto, I feel like our national American politics will continue to sort of um, these lunations to me really continue to speak to some of the political divisiveness and vitriol that we're seeing at the moment. So um, uh, so this sun, the full moon opposite Chiron on April 6th, with the sun conjunct Chiron on April 5th and 6th, this could be, because Trump is now saying things like he's putting on his Truth social media platform that his supporters should once again protest, quote, and take, quote, our nation back. And so I just wonder, with the sun Chiron and then the eclipse square Pluto, whether we'll continue to have to deal with a very divisive national discourse that's wounding, that actually, with this sun Chiron reflecting this sort of sun Chiron, the feeling of that.
Yeah. And who are we? Where are we from? What is our identity? How are we taking action or not taking action? All right. So April 9th, we have Uranus conjunct Juno. What do we think about this?
Square Lilith here. I think that this is, aside from what happens on April 11th, the Sun Jupiter conjunction square Pallas, I think this Uranus conjunct Juno is the most interesting conjunction of the month, because this is planet of change, often sudden change, surprising change, sometimes shocking change, joining Juno, which can represent commitment to partnership, to relationship, to friendship, to a business partnership. It can also represent our sense of fairness, our sense of justice. So these are two fairly electric archetypes meeting up and then squaring Lilith, who we were just talking about, can be a bit of a tinderbox influence. And it's why I think of Trump and his supporters. If he's facing an arrest, we could be looking at some echo of the January 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just looked up the last time that Uranus and Juno were conjoined, and it was at 2 degrees of Taurus on July 5th, 2018. And it looks like there was an immigration activist scaling the Statue of Liberty.
I love that.
There was some stuff going on with the Soviets and like poisonings, nerve agents, and
they were poisoning.
Yeah.
When they figured out what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And Trump thanked American heroes the day before on the 4th of July. So this really is going to be about it totally is going to be about Trump. It's going to be about the United States. I
love that immigration activist on the Statue of Liberty. That's a wonderful image of Uranus Juno, I think.
Yeah, especially because the Statue of Liberty is a goddess, right? And then I know recently we've had the balloons that have been shot down, and back then China said the US was opening fire with tariffs, and I mean, yeah, there's stuff about France with riots back then, gas prices. So it's not like, I feel like it's, although a lot has changed in the world, at the same time a lot has not changed in the world. And to a certain extent people are like, yeah, that's just what's happening, right? Like you might listen to this and be like, yeah, that's just what's happening. But it is interesting to see that this does have to go back to July 4th, and July 4th is always the birth of our country, and we're in the Pluto return. So it'll be interesting to see how shakeups and changes in our partnerships, as well on a personal level, might change. I've been saying this whole year is about sort of the collective versus the individual, right? With the eclipses in Aries and Libra moving from Taurus and Scorpio. And this is just another one of those where it's like Uranus allows for these unplannable surprises, and Juno is better partnership. So on a personal level, I think we could use this as saying, you know, if you want a surprise proposal or you want to take someone out on a date, you want to surprise them at work, you want to give them some flowers, that would be a really beautiful way, like chocolate, flowers, dinner, plan a date that this person's not expecting. Like if you normally do those things, get different flowers, send them to a different place, make them go on a hunt for it. Like it's a way to say like you could have a lot of fun with your partners and stuff like that. But it could also be surprising revelations.
Surprising revelations, or you could meet a new partner out of the blue.
Yeah.
You know, someone who ends up having long-term potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But there is also the potential there with the planet of change coming up against the asteroid of commitment of relationships going through significant shifts. It's a breakup aspect. It could be.
It could be. But we can plan for these things. And sometimes you don't see the breakup coming and it needed to happen for your greatest good. And so just know that you're worthy and it wasn't for you, if that's the case, right?
Yeah. And you know, with the Sun conjunct Jupiter from April 11th to April 13th, that's really the other banner aspect of the month. Sun conjunct Jupiter is a big day. This happens once a year. So if you want to make a big change, if you want to stand up to the powers that be in your life, you know, these days, this April 9 to April 11, it's a great time. You'll have a ton of energy with this Sun Jupiter aspecting all of our charts in some way. So it could be that this is the point in the month where you just say, I can't take it anymore. I've had it. And there's this explosion of positive energy with Sun Jupiter that suddenly you have the energy to break out of something that it hasn't been good for you in a while, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. So
and Venus moving into Gemini on April 11 as well, and Venus trine Pluto that day. So on April 11th, at the same time that the Sun is conjunct Jupiter. So it's almost like the changes that we may be making with all this energy, this Jupiterian energy, are going to lead to positive things with Venus trine Pluto. Venus trine Pluto is a beautiful aspect of transformation.
Yeah. I also see with Venus trine Pluto, with Venus in Taurus, trine Pluto and Capricorn, it's like I just went to a really luxurious spa, or I just went like wine tasting with my girls, especially like right as it moves into Gemini. It's almost like the girls' trip to the spa and then a wine tasting weekend, like a vacation sort of a thing. Like, let's go out. We're going to spend some money. We're going to treat ourselves well. We're doing self-care. We're going to eat really good food. It's farm to table. It's all organic, you know, and that's what's up.
Maybe go listen to someone really interesting speak.
Or sing music. Someone's got to drop an album. Don't you think someone's got to drop an album with that? Like
Sun Jupiter. Yeah.
Sun Jupiter, like Venus, Pluto. I wouldn't be surprised if we see like Queen Bee or someone drop an album with that. Like, especially like right at like 29 Taurus, the album would be about change.
So moving on here, April 14 to 15 is an interesting day because we've got Venus square Saturn and the Sun conjunct Eris. So the Sun moves on from Jupiter and it meets up with Eris. And interestingly, April 20th to 29, Jupiter will conjoin Eris in April. So this is big energy.
Jupiter conjoins Eris. So Jupiter expands everything it touches. It's about learning. It's about teaching. It's about healing. And Eris is the goddess who took the golden apple and wrote to the Ferris and rolled it into the wedding and made the goddesses fight over it to start the Trojan War. So it's like if Eris was like, that's a big old apple and y'all are going to die if you don't get it. That's sort of the energy, like just kind of heightening the stakes on it. I mean, like not, that's what I mean by y'all are going to die, not that you are, but I'm just saying like exaggerating this intensity, this shakeup. It's like, it is like drama. This is like Real Housewives on steroids.
Yes, that's
right?
a wonderful way to think about
It's like
it.
all those memes with the cat and the woman and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like just do it up big, but be careful too. Be careful. I do feel like be careful. Just like be mindful, because if someone is in a bad mood and you're at in the wrong place at the wrong time, just be safe. Like, I'm not saying don't go out, just be safe. Where's the moon on that day?
Well, so that's April. This Jupiter Eris conjunction is all the way from April 20th, the eclipse on April 20th through April 29th, through the almost the end of the month. So
Yeah, so that eclipse, I would definitely say like this is a time to, like, it could just be like fun drama, but it could be like real intense stuff going on that is serious. So
and it could
be
be
nice
in
to
the middle.
people. Be
Yeah, like
nice, right? Like, because you don't know
Marshall's in
what
a
people are
rough
going
time.
through. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
I do think that's wise. The Jupiter Eris, so Eris, goddess of discord, um, also, Henry Seltzer, as we know, has written a whole book tying Eris um, to feminists and other activists, and so Eris can have, um, I feel like a sense of like just giving us the energy to stand up for ourselves, to make a stand, and like you're saying, it can be that can express positively sometimes, and then other times it can just be people flying off the handle and starting fights, and yeah. So it's definitely a time to, like, I would say, not tiptoe, but watch your words. Like, if you don't need to have a discussion that could get tense near the end of the month, just don't do it. Just put it off.
yeah,
Potentially.
yeah.
Um,
Why? Yeah, it's sort of like why would you do, why, don't be mean. But if you want to use this for good, you know what? Maybe you stand up in the boardroom meeting and you say, you know what? I've had enough of this. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, but maybe I'm the only one willing to stand up and say something about it. And I feel, and people will be like, oh, wow, they're brave. Thank goodness someone finally said something, because we just can't take it anymore.
yeah,
So whistleblower,
yeah.
it gives whistleblower. It's giving.
Yeah. And so April 14 to 15, Venus square Saturn, Sun conjunct Eris. This is also potentially a day where, things could there could be some challenges. Venus square Saturn is not really a fun aspect. Sort of feeling unloved potentially, or either we don't feel loved, or we're realizing we don't love somebody else, or don't get a haircut this day. No haircuts.
It's going to be cut too short and it's going to take forever to grow back in. It's not going to be too cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know what I've found with Venus Saturn difficult aspects, because I've had a ton of them myself lately, mostly conjunctions, but the Venus and I have natally a sextile, so I feel like I'm just mastering this in my lifetime, even though like Venus is happy, like, and a sextile is like easy or whatever. It's not always. Saturn's not so nice, but I think that Venus Saturn is really about taking responsibility and being the bigger person and being mature, and whatever it is that you are asking from the other person that's making you feel unloved, making sure that you're speaking up about it. Go to therapy, like learn your attachment style. I'm going to put out something about what I found in attachment styles soon. I've been talking with astrologer Lisa Warman, and we come up with this sort of theory about how to look at attachment styles in the chart. And yeah, so like look at your attachment style. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I was just like, we need to do a podcast episode about this, and we need to like publish something to just get it out there so I can just talk about it.
It's such a useful, it's such a helpful way of thinking about relationships. So yeah, I love to see it integrated.
Yeah, I mean, this is classic,
Astrology.
like anxious avoidant um
Yeah.
energy, because Saturn is like away and Venus is like moving towards, like in relationship. So it's someone saying like codependency. This is, where someone goes, oh, they're a narcissist, or and it's like, well, are they, or do you just need to be a little bit mature and be spiritual and be the bigger person? And if you're wanting them to do something, like you want them to have some big romantic gesture, why don't you do it and show them what it feels like to receive that kind of love? And then maybe they'll get the point, they'll get the picture, and then they'll do it back. But if you don't, the low vibe of this is like, I feel lonely and this sucks and you don't like me, and I'm just going to be kind of snarky about it. So what? And that's not cute. It's not cute. Like, let's be bigger people about this. Let's be a little bit more mature, and let's give the love that we want to receive.
Although, being a realist, I sort of like, which I love everything you just said, and it's fantastic advice.
Pisces rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Pisces, Virgo. Virgo the realist over here. It's like all of us have days where we just don't feel very good, and I think there's also a lesson in just like, today I don't feel great. I'm gonna wear my sweats and I'm gonna have a bowl of ice cream and watch whatever TV makes me feel good. And and like it's okay. We don't have to, be on top of the world every single day. It's okay to have a day where you're just like, yeah, I don't feel so great today. It's a day. And I mean, I think there's a lesson too in that there are ups and downs, and that even in the warmest, most loving relationships, we can have days where we're feeling like they just, I'm not sure this is going to work. So
Yeah.
it's just riding the waves.
Yeah, just ride the wave. Don't make any big decisions. Don't sign contracts, or if you do, just take your time with it. Sort of, you might feel like, oh, I have to do this to please them. You don't.
Just at least not on the 14th, 15th.
Yeah, just wait.
Just put it off. Anybody can wait 48 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do we want to talk about the eclipse? April 20th.
Yes. Yes. Let's do it. The eclipse, April 20th.
So this is the first of two. This is the spring eclipse season of the year. This one is at 29 Aries. And as we have already mentioned, lots of foreshadowing. It is square Pluto. The sun also goes into Taurus on April 20th. So this is the start of eclipse season.
Yeah. So the eclipse on April 20th is going to be the sun and the moon together, conjunct. That is a new moon because the moon is dark and it's going to begin growing in light. And it's going to be at 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Aries. Now, this is the second new moon of Aries season, not of the month, but of Aries season. The first new moon in Aries was on March 21st. And that was at 0 degrees of Aries. And so whenever we have two lunations in a month, we either have a black moon or a blue moon. So if it's a full moon, if you have two full moons in a month, and it pretty much has to be at 0 degrees and 29 degrees because of the way the moon works, it's every 2 weeks, which is 15 degrees. There's only 30 degrees in a sign. So when you start having lunations that are like at 1 degree, eventually you're going to get down to 0 degrees. And then you either have another one at 0 degrees or you have one at 29 degrees. And so you get either two full moons at those places or you get two new moons. Now, when you have two new moons, you have a black moon. Now, it's rare, I want to say, I don't know how rare because I haven't looked it up, but it's pretty rare to have a new moon or full moon that's a blue moon or a black moon also be an eclipse. So it's pretty special. Now, a full moon is going to be more emotional because the moon is full of itself. It's big and bright and shining. And when you think about like full moon, it's like werewolves come out, right? A new moon is a bit of a quieter time because it's the beginning. We're coming off the moon losing its energy, losing its light. We're tired, we're wrapping things up, but it can be a really exciting time because you're seeding something new. And once we get to 3 days after that new moon, April 23rd or so, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's when you can really start to like do some new moon rituals and things like that. So it'll be very interesting. And I think the closing aspect of that moon in Taurus, which will be 3 days after, 2-3 days after, will be a trine to Pluto, which is ripe for change. And so the eclipse is happening on the North Node, and the North Node is where we haven't been before. We haven't done it before. We don't know how to do it very well. And it also brings a power surge. So we're going to have a power surge, but the moon's going to be dark. But it's a power surge on the intentions that we're setting about Aries topics. So Aries in general, it's who am I, being an individual, my rights, wanting to take action, perhaps being a bit impulsive, not always caring about what other people think, but just being like, hey, this is me. And you get to think what you want to think.
There's a ton of like change oriented energy, I feel like, in these lunations and transits this month. It's sort of like a, if you've been wanting to make some big change, I think this is a great month to do it because there's so much energy
Totally.
along those lines. If you're like, I've been wanting to leave this one apartment forever and I just haven't been able to like get the, whatever it is. And that I think April's a great time to just doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of kind of get shit done energy here that can be a little bit inflammatory maybe, but it can also push us to do great things. Part of like, but one of my keywords as I was looking at this month was like, take the leap, just this Aries energy.
Yeah.
You're trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a time to look out for sure. Not look out for in a negative sense. Although when we do have Aries eclipses, people can get really heated. They can get argumentative. You can literally overheat. So you do want to stay hydrated. People can have more road rage, things like that. I think it's more likely on a full moon than a new moon. So I would say that if you're feeling heated or irritable or inflamed in any way, cool off, sweat it out, but don't get sunstroke kind of a thing. Like, know your boundaries, know what to look out for, wear sunscreen, but also get your vitamin D. It's like, it's sort of a balance between these things. You don't want to overdo it, but you do want to use the energy. Like, you do want to sweat it out, but you don't want to sweat to the point that like you're dehydrated and you pass out. And you want to use that as fuel to make a change for the better in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Controlled fire. Can we have a controlled fire? Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. We should look out for fires too around that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and Neptune opposite Ceres most of the month as well. We mentioned that. Yeah. Ceres retrograde. So not most of the month, couple of weeks. April 7th, actually about 10 days. April 7th to 16th, Ceres opposite Neptune. So that's enough. That's with Ceres and Neptune, that's a potential for natural disaster. I would say more water related, like floods with the two of those, Ceres and Neptune. But yeah. I'm curious what you think about this Mercury retrograde, because April 21, Mercury will go retrograde at 15 Taurus. And if people have been listening in, they may recall that 15 Taurus is sort of a hot spot this year and into next year, really, with Uranus to a certain degree. But 15 Taurus is where the May 5 eclipse will be. And Mercury is going retrograde there at 15 Taurus, April 21. And back between February 3rd and March 13th, Uranus was transiting 15 Taurus. And then Jupiter will be within a degree of 15 Taurus from August through September and into early October of this year. And so it's sort of like whatever's going on at 15 Taurus, if anyone has something at 15 Taurus or in sextile, trine, square, opposition, even I would say quincunx, because this degree is so highlighted this year. I just something's happening at 15 Taurus. And I know, Taylor, you've said this is like a mundane, this is a world transit sort of point as well.
Yeah. 15 degrees of the fixed sign. So that includes 15 degrees of Taurus, which is where Uranus has been for the majority of the past year or so, due to retrogrades and whatnot, means that this is a world event. It's on the world stage, and you'll feel it personally, but if you feel it personally, you've been feeling it personally. So you might just be a part of that story that's happening on a world stage. But these are big things that happen. So if Trump gets arrested, for example, this is when you hear a next development in the story, or if something's happening with a world leader, or there's protests, or, God forbid, shootings and things like that. This is sort of, unfortunately, when we hear about it. We also hear in the US about Supreme Court cases, when we have transits to the world points.
Mm-hmm. And so it was last May. It was May 2022, if I'm correct. I'm looking at the ephemeris, that Uranus first passed over that 15 Taurus degree, and it was direct for a while, and then it went retrograde. So whatever Uranus is changing in our lives, Mercury and Jupiter are piling on this year in a big way. And so I think we're going to see, with this Mercury retrograde, it's going to be about, and the May 5th eclipse as well. So Mercury retrograde at 15 Taurus, there's going to be conversation, there's going to be discussion, there's going to be negotiation around whatever Uranus has been bringing up for you,
Yeah.
And it might be a time to step back and rethink. Am I ready to fully commit to whatever these changes Uranus has been bringing? Retrench. All the words with the retrograde.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when that May 5th eclipse gets there to 15 Taurus, we could talk about that next month, but I want to highlight this Mercury retrograde because it's such an interesting note in the story of 15 Taurus over the past couple of years, or last year and this year, and
yeah, for sure. So that's a big deal.
And take the Mercury retrograde to think, to think about it, to allow yourself to slow down. Uranus often pushes us into these new experiences that can feel like we're out of our comfort zone. They can scare us a little bit, or we're trying new things or whatever. With Mercury retrograde, it could be a time to slow down, to relax, to pull back a bit. It's okay to think about it. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to examine your options. Look at do all the research, and when Mercury goes direct, which will be about 3 weeks later, I don't have that date exact.
It'll be 21 days later, so 9.
April. Mercury goes direct.
The math isn't mathing for me right now.
May 15.
Yeah.
So and then maybe that's the time, that whatever Uranus has been doing.
I don't know if that's time for honestly, because we're in eclipse season. Like after that full moon in Libra, we have the first eclipse, and then we have the second eclipse May 5th, and then that's going to be active until we have the next full moon, which is not going to be until I think May 19th or 20th. Yeah. So because it's going to be 2 weeks after May 15th. So
May 19th.
Yeah. And so if it's May 15th, like this Mercury retrograde is, it's making up for lost time, because when we started out 2023, we had Mercury, Mars, and Uranus retrograde. Everything else was direct, but that Mars retrograde was like really messing with us. And end of March, we just got out of Mars's retrograde shadow. Mars moved into Cancer March 23rd. And Uranus is retracing its steps. We're not going to feel that as much. It's pretty normal for these outer planets that move slowly to take a while. But Mercury and Mars being direct, after we got to that new moon at the beginning of February in Aquarius, the Lunar New Year, that's when people really started to feel like, okay, like it's a new year, we can move forward. And for I think 88 days, we had no retrograde. So this April 21st is marking. I mean, I think Ceres is retrograde, but besides Ceres, major planets have not been retrograde for 88 days, which is remarkable. And we've been able to make a lot of forward progress. And so that's why I say Mercury is making up for lost time, because not only is he retrograde, but he's retrograde during eclipse season for the entirety of eclipse season. And he's like, all right, y'all thought it was cool. Y'all was skating. No, we're not skating anymore. We're getting serious. You need to do some work. Okay. Time to put in the work. No more skating.
Breaks are on.
Yeah.
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 Think, speak, act, make mistakes, redo it again.
Yeah, no, I love it. So yeah, the outer planets, they do take their time and they do revisit the same degrees. What I think is striking is that everything else is visiting 15 Taurus too. Like we get a Mercury retrograde here, we get an eclipse here, we get Jupiter here for 2+ months later in the year. I just think it's really interesting. So if you have anything, like I say, in relation to 15 Taurus, that point will be highlighted for you.
Yeah, I really hope that we are using the Taurus energy to address the issues in our food system, and also to address resource issues and universal basic income. So if you are a social entrepreneur, if you are a social activist, if you are a person who cares, this is an amazing opportunity to address issues of social justice related to income and getting our needs met. And also in the United States specifically, the amount of poison and chemicals that are inputs into our food that are making us sick. It's time to do something about it. This is when you really can put your head together. You can feel frustrated about it. You can feel like you're speaking up about it and nothing's happening. But if you're planful about the fact that this is happening, you can actually use this to your benefit to bring attention to your cause and to the solutions that you have to offer. So please let us know how we can support you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So should we look at this Sun-Vesta-North Node sextiling Saturn? I think this is such a nice way to round out the month, aside from that Mars square Chiron.
Yeah. So April 25th and 26th, the sun, our energy, our vital force, the ability to see something clearly and highlight, a topic, is meeting up with Vesta, who is the goddess that tended to the fire. It was multiple women that would tend to the fire, and that fire purified the water and the food that fed the city of Rome. And so it's basically tending to your sacred heart, because they were the Vestal virgins, right? And they weren't virgins because they were literally virgins. They were virgins because they were not mothers of biological children.
They were independent. The word virgin originally meant, and I believe I first heard this from Rick Levine, independent woman.
Right? Independent women.
I know.
Yeah. Who'd have thought, that were revered and took care of the city. So they became mothers of the entire city of Rome, because they had to make sure that the water and the food supply wouldn't be poisoned by maintaining the fire and the hearth. But Vesta is also about our home. And so it's essentially where we have what I like to call the Virginia Woolf, a room of one's own type of energy. And you can have this anywhere. You're going to have it somewhere in your chart. But if it's the sun in Vesta, this is going to be in the sign of Taurus. So it is what we hold sacred about our food, about our earth. about our money, about our resources, about our nap time, about our rest, about the hard work that we do. Like, just think about the Taurus topics. It could be about farm animals. I mean, it could be about this pastoral image that actually has a lot to do with MAGA, right? Like making America great again and bringing back that like pastoral, wonderful, beautiful story that we have of America that's not true. And bullion, right? The financial system, Karl Marx, revolutionaries, activists have very strong Taurus, because Taurus is a fixed sign and it wants to take action. And so when you have fixed Earth, okay, Earth wants to do real things, and fixed is super stubborn and it's going to do something about it. So that's why Tauruses work really hard and really long. And Malcolm X was a Taurus. Karl Marx was a Taurus. And so that's why it's about, you know, the rights of people related to money, related to human rights, related to the resources that are available to them. Now, the North Node is something that we haven't done before, something that we're not, we don't know how to do, but we need to evolve towards. So that North Node at early degrees of Taurus echoes that thing of like, we've never done this before, because the early degrees of a sign is like very new, very young, very immature. And it's asking us to evolve towards that. So how are we coming up with new solutions? Because then it's sextile to Saturn, which is in Pisces. Saturn is about the structures that we have. It's about authority. It's about responsibility, maturity, and hard work. And in the sign of Pisces is about collective compassion, the higher octave of love, our spirituality, also fame and glamour and film and cameras. So if there, maybe there's a movie trailer or a movie that comes out or a Netflix special about someone, actually I did just see this, and this is March, right, when we're saying this, but I did just see a Netflix preview about a former, I believe he was, I don't know if it was NBA or NFL, and I can't remember his name, but he retired and then he's going to school, I think in North Carolina, and he's playing golf for them and he's trying to get his bachelor's degree. So I feel like that's sort of this kind of story that we'll see is like a redemption story, or someone who's like, I'm independent, I'm on my own, I'm going out, I'm tending to my own sacred fire, leaning into my own spirituality in order to construct a new life and home and space for myself. But you can use this to highlight the ways in which your space is supportive of you and your evolution. When we have North Node activations or any nodal activations, you kind of want to look out for the people that you meet. And yeah, I think that's probably a lot that I've said about that.
No, I love it. I love going back to school. That's a fun story.
Mhm.
Well, I do think by transit that when the nodes are intersecting important parts in our chart, points in our chart by transit, the suggestion for me there is that this is the direction of growth. Yeah, it may feel new, it may feel different, it may feel a little uncomfortable, but this, if we move with this energy, and this Sun Vesta North Node conjunction is at 4 Taurus, and Jupiter will be back by retrograde at this 4-5 Taurus point. Where, if I'm right about this, if it retrogrades all the way back, yeah, it'll retrograde all the way back in December of this year to this 5 Taurus point. So it's something interesting about the North Node being here at 5 Taurus right around now. And if I'm anyway, maybe the Venus Juno North Node conjunction is even at 5 Taurus, around 5 Taurus. But anyway, so I do feel like there's something about growth here. And with Venus sextile Chiron also on April 25th, there's a sense of healing. There's something sweet that rounds out the month. Maybe, yeah, like taking responsibility of some sort of level of growth with Saturn, some maturity that's happened, some emotional growth. Unfortunately, we've got one last hurdle before we get out of April, and that's this Mars square Chiron. And that's April 26th. through the 29th, Mars will square Chiron. So it's almost like we come to this place of peace around the 25th, but there may be one more punch. I know that's not a great way to put it.
I do have to say that Mars in Cancer is about protecting the vulnerable. And we should remember, even though Mars is not at the early, I don't think Mars is at early degrees of, no, it's not at the early degrees of Cancer, but by sign, it is going to still be trine to Saturn. And Saturn is about collective compassion and the vulnerable as well. So I do think that that is a mitigating factor in what might feel hard, because it's about that tenacity and the ability to build structures for people. So I think it might just, if it is that sucker punch or, blow to the heart or something like that, at the same
one more
time,
thing that kind of hits you in the stomach.
Yeah. A gut punch that eventually Saturn will come, clean it up, and create a charity or a fundraiser or a structure, a container, in order to provide for the needs that are highlighted by what feels tender.
I love that. Mars will be at 15 Cancer, squaring 15 or so Cancer, squaring Chiron at 16 Aries. 25th, 26th. Yeah, Mars will be at 16 Cancer, conjunct the moon on April 26th. That will square Chiron.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I guess I was just going to say, like, this is still during eclipse season. And we haven't said this, but one of my mentors and teachers, Anne Ortley, often highlights the fact that eclipse season is when we lose people. Right. So I can see if there are people, famous people especially, who are maternal figures or protective figures who have really, who embody Mars and Cancer. Perhaps some passings there, and that feeling like a gut punch collectively to all of us, and reminds us of the need to carry the torch with that Saturn and Pisces of creating some structures that are enduring, because we can no longer count on those people to be our voice and to be the protector of those people that need protecting, and hopefully they leave a legacy for us of that we can,
caring for others.
Yeah,
with that Mars and Cancer. Gosh, and that reminds me, Taylor, I actually have plans to go see a mentor of mine. She's been a mentor for 15 plus years. She's not doing well physically because she's just getting older, and I'm seeing her next month. And so it's a reminder to cherish the relationships we have, value the relationships we have while they're in our lives.
Yeah.
But no one is suggesting that eclipses necessarily equate to death. It's just that
it's mostly like the people who are like hanging on, and like, when they're ready to go, it's an opportunity, it's a door, it's an opening, it's a window. And for some people that is relief. So I say it like in the terms that this isn't to be scary. It's like, if someone is wanting and willing and needing to go, like, we might not be aware of the fact that they are, but they may use that portal as an opportunity for that exit. And
so tell people you love them, value your relationships, really put in the time. Any final thoughts for April?
It's a big month. It's intense. So take care of yourself, do self-care. That's what Aries is good for, is like looking at yourself and caring for yourself, putting your own oxygen mask on first. Make sure that you've got enough endurance to get you through the month. Take time off from work. The Supreme Court just passed a law. They just made a judgment on a case in March that your paid time off from your employer is not part of your salary, which means that if you do something wrong or you don't do anything wrong, they can take your PTO away from you. So this is big. Take your vacation time month and use it, because you need it. We don't need to work so hard all the time. That would be my final advice.
Completely agree. And absolutely self-care. And I think that's part of the value of astrology is we can say, and Taylor and I, we strive to find all the sort of archetypal expressions of these to share what's a range of possible expressions for anything that might be going on at a given time. But if you do experience something difficult this month, always, always, always a reminder is take the time you need, get the support you need, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, and it's okay to be yourself. We need you to be yourself. We need you to be you. We need you to be here. You're amazing. You're beautiful, and we love you.
Yeah. And we'd love to hear your thoughts and comments.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, leave us some comments. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know what you think. And we will see you again next month for the May forecast. So thanks so much, Kris, for joining.
All right. Bye, Taylor.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of On Thriving. If you found this episode valuable, please hit follow and then rate and leave a review on your favorite podcast provider. Hit subscribe and the bell on YouTube and write to me in the comments. Your support helps the show reach more listeners and enables us to continue to create valuable content for you. Does your work not light you up anymore? Do you know this job just isn't it? That there's more to life and work than feeling irritated and unhappy? You can see both the problems and solutions that would make your clients happy and would make the world a better place, but your employer has another agenda and they're not fully leveraging your skills and expertise. Maybe you know that you're ready for a career change or retirement, or you're already in the process of starting your own business, but you need guidance to put the missing pieces together so you can figure out what you're going to do, how to make it successful, and when to make the leap. If you are a passionate and talented professional, entrepreneur, or leader who has checked all the boxes of what society tells you you're supposed to do to be successful, like get an education, get a day job that aligns with your skills, follow a budget, clock in and out on time, and meet or even exceed your performance goals, and yet you're feeling unfulfilled, overworked, drained, underappreciated, burned out, and either underpaid or handcuffed to your salary, let me ask you this. What if you could love what you do every single day, get your needs met abundantly, love where you are, and love who you spend your time with? If that sounds like what you're ready for, to thrive with more love, fulfillment, ease, abundance, and happiness in your life, then you should grab a free copy of my complete guide to making your daydream your reality, which will help you get from blocked and stuck on how to get from where you are in your job and your life to clear and confident on how to do work you love every day so you can stop surviving and start thriving. The guide will help you identify the optimal strategies for you to not only figure out how to do what you love every day, but how to make it profitable and articulate your why, your purpose, so you have a clear guiding light to build and leave a legacy and make your mark on the world. Whether you don't know any astrology at all or are a professional astrologer, this guide will help you launch your glow up so you can live the life of your dreams. You can get it on my webpage for this episode over at taylorschuler.com/horoscopes. If you want to accelerate your journey to living your purpose and get practical tools you can use to build your life and your business, I invite you to join the community at our Thriving Together level. You'll have full, exclusive, early access to my new materials, the ability to ask me your questions and get your chart read live, and connect with like-minded people you can collaborate with. Learn more and join now at taylorschuler.com/thrive. Be sure to follow us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes content. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to tune in. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, keep thriving.